Hello, I'm Rabbi Abram Goodstein, and I gave this sermon on April 23rd. I sometimes wonder what it would have been like to have been a regular Israelite experiencing all the changes the Torah dictates for its people. During their time in Egypt, the Israelites identified themselves as believers of Adonai and as slaves. They did not have much of a cultural or religious practices of their own. And when the Israelites escaped Egypt and were redeemed by Adonai, their newly discovered freedom meant new practices as a people. And as Exodus and Leviticus and Numbers and Deuteronomy instructs addition after addition to the common practice of the Israelite people, the Israelites themselves must have felt something over these new changes. Were they gleeful of their new societal identity? Were they frustrated by their changing requirements and new rules that the Torah instructed? Or were they in a daze over the speed and impact of all these changes? Without witness testimonials, it's impossible to know what the average Israelite was thinking. And I'm most curious about a brand new ritual laid out in this week's Torah portion. In this ritual, a regular Israelite standing close to the tabernacle would have witnessed Aaron take 2 goats. Each goat was marked randomly, one with the word Adonai, and the other with the word Azazel. The goat marked with Adonai would be sacrificed in a typical purgation offering, which the ancient Israelite would recognize as an offering to make someone who sinned pure again. For the second goat, the ancient Israelite would watch as Aaron makes expiation with the goat. The Israelite would experience this moment as Aaron telling the goat sins that were made against God. Then the Israelite would watch the final component of this ritual as Aaron let the goat go, and it would be free to wander the wilderness. If I were an ancient Israelite witnessing this ritual, I think I'd be scratching my head, super confused. Because first off, who offered these goats? Often when an Israelite sins against God by accident, they offer an animal to be sacrificed to be redeemed, just like the way the first goat was sacrificed. Yet there is no clear offerer in this particular sacrifice. And second, who is Azazel? Would I, as an ancient Israelite, recognize that name? And third, whose sins is Aaron telling the second goat? If there is no offerer, then there is no sins. Unfortunately, the text does not give us any more information than what they see here. Perhaps something got left out. There seems to be a missing detail that would unpack this mystery. But since we don't have this needed detail, Judaism, true to form, interpreted and reinterpreted this ritual in countless ways. On Yom Kippur morning, the traditional reading for many congregations is Leviticus 16, which is the chapter this ritual comes from. And the common interpretation of this ritual is in the context of Yom Kippur, that Aaron is not acting out this ritual on behalf of one person, but on behalf of all of the Israelites. The first goat is sacrificed to redeem the whole Israelite community of their sins, and the second goat has the same sins spoken out to it and then is let go or allowed to escape. This is the origin story of the famous idiom scapegoat. So the High Holidays helps us answer the question of who is making the offering, the whole Jewish community. However, the name Azazel continues to flummox Jews since its entry into the Torah's corpus here in Leviticus 16. The simplest definition that I have seen is that Azazel means cliffside. Thus, the Yom Kippur scapegoat is interpreted to fall off a cliffside once let go into the wilderness. However, the most complex explanation of Azazel that I have seen is that he is a supernatural figure who led a group of angels in a war against Adonai. So as you can see, Azazel's explanation is really up for anyone to interpret. However, I continue to think about that regular ancient Israelite, a person who remembers what slavery felt like, a person who has encountered monumental change among his or her people, a person who witnessed the growth from a people enslaved into a moral and ethical society. Did this person just roll their eyes at another obscure sacrificial ritual? Or did this person feel the power of their sins redeemed by this ritual? It's really hard to know. But just because they are barely mentioned in the Torah shouldn't mean we overlook them. Because it was that person, not just Moses and Miriam, we have to thank for conveying their belief in Adonai to the next generation. We should honor the regular Israelite for passing down their new rituals and customs into our tradition. And just as Jews convey our tradition to our children, that continues the long line of Judaism. Thank you.